I challenged myself to dance freestyle every day for a week. And here's how that went. If you're new here, hi, my name is Sat, and this is week 4 of my creativity experiment, a series in which I'm forcing myself to create new weekly videos to push my creative boundaries. Admittedly, I'm really excited for this video because it's the first one in the series that actually feels like it's a product of this experiment, given that it's our first challenge week. Also, it's really exciting because it's a dance challenge week, and I'm thinking this is going to be a mini series of reconnecting with dance. Dance is a passion that I've had for most of my life, and I feel like I've had ins and outs and ebbs and flows with, being fully immersed in it and sometimes stepping away from it. And so I'm really glad to be finding the time and space to find my way back towards it. So this challenge, as the introduction, the title, and the thumbnail probably suggest, is to dance every single day, freestyling to random music for an entire week. In this context, freestyling is just improvisational dance, which means to random music that I may or may not have been familiar with, I just had to dance in whatever style felt right for the song. Just to give you a little bit of background about my dance history, I would say I've been a dancer for most of my life. I probably started dancing as soon as I could walk. I joined my first dance club or crew in high school, and eventually became the captain of that crew and produced a concert my senior year. And in college, I joined my university's hip-hop dance club as well. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be very involved past my freshman year because of other org commitments, and then the pandemic happened. Since finishing college, I haven't had the chance to do as much group performances or choreography-based dance styles, simply because I didn't have the time to join a crew or take as many lessons as I would like to once I started working full-time. But thankfully, about 2 years ago, I discovered West Coast Swing. West Coast Swing, also known as modern swing, is a partnered social dance that is also very improvisational heavy, but it's definitely a different style than what I'm used to, which was hip-hop and street dance, aka more solo dance styles. I do currently still do West Coast Swing weekly, sometimes more so. However, there's still a part of me that misses my bread and butter. And so I figured that this series would be a great time for me to try and reconnect with that. When it comes to hip hop and street dance, although my experience is mostly in a choreography and performance-based context, I've personally always actually felt really comfortable with and enjoyed freestyling and improv. It's not the most common stance to take, especially when you come from a background of being part of different dance crews and dance clubs. But I personally love the mental challenge that comes with trying to connect real time with music and having to pay attention and figure out what might come next, and really exploring and having the freedom to just play around with how the music feels and letting your body take over. So we're kicking off this mini series with a 7-day freestyle challenge and see where we go from there. Day 1 starts out with a pretty simple setup in my room. It's a little tight, so that limited my movement quite a bit, and being indoors, I had to stick with minimal footwork, given that I was dancing in socks. I started out with some classic hip-hop music, which admittedly isn't something I frequently seek out to dance to, especially in freestyle, as it doesn't really match my movement stylistically, but it was good to get some practice in. I switched over to a little bit of pop and femme later on, since those are closer to my comfort styles. But honestly, I was rusty regardless, and the space limitations definitely had an impact on how I was dancing, but I don't know if I would have done much more given more space. My goal for this day was really just to get some movement in. I felt like a creaky, dusty old toy that had been sitting in the attic for too long, so getting myself to just start moving again without having to go somewhere else to do it was a little bit foreign, and my body was definitely feeling it. Soon after starting, though, I was really glad I did it. once I was warmed up, it felt good to move. I am the type of person that visualizes dance and choreo in my head while walking around listening to music, but doesn't actually execute them often. So this felt similar to getting my piled up thoughts out onto paper. I definitely wasn't doing anything as good as I had pictured it in my head, but I'm just really glad I didn't chicken out of this challenge. Also, I tried my best to keep the overlaid music on the copyrighted songs as similar in vibe to the original song as I could manage. Some of them don't match exactly, and a lot of them are not the exact same BPM. But yeah, again, I'll be posting some of these videos with their original audio on some short form socials. If you know the original song that I've written on the screen while I'm dancing to an overlaid song and can tell by my movements where in the original song I actually am, let me know in the comments. I'm really curious about that. Day 2 setup is the same as the previous day. However, I was in a bit of a rush to get this done. I was filming this just before having to leave for a dance event for the whole weekend, so I was packed up and needed to be done in time to carpool with a friend right after this video. Because of that, I wasn't too intentional about my music choices for this day. I never really am and just use random playlists that I find on Spotify, but on this day I stuck with the same playlist that I was at on the end of day 1, which was mainly a lot of pop femme music. I didn't really have a specific clear goal for this day given the time constraints, and I really was more focused on just getting this done and actually keeping up with the challenge. All I can say is that I got really warm while dancing this day and needed to open a window despite it being below freezing outside. It might have been the long sleeves, and yes, the layers did come off. So we've got a new location for day 3. This was at the gym of the hotel we were staying at for the previously mentioned dance event. I had to find a space to do this challenge, and because West Coast Swing weekend events typically involve a lot of very late night dancing, I was one of the few people who was actually up early. Well, early being 9 a.m. And the floor type in this room was a little sticky, which isn't great for swing dance, but is great for my freestyling. So honestly, I'm quite glad I didn't have competition for this space. I definitely spent more time dancing on this day, which was great given that I had all this space and a mirror even to work with. So, in terms of genres and styles, I got through a bit of hip hop at the beginning. Then I transitioned into some femme where I was able to do some whacking practice, which was nice because I didn't have to worry about hitting a shelf this time around. I also eventually found my way to some chill, smooth R&B vibes, and I'll admit that is one of my favorite genres to dance to and is one of the styles that I really enjoy doing, so that was really nice. Because I had the space, one of my goals for this day was to really just make the most of it. I was telling myself to take up more of the space and really utilize all of it. And I also specifically wanted to work on adding more variety to my dancing. I know a lot of my movements in general are quite repetitive, and this is something that I was thinking about pretty much every day of this challenge. I can't really say if it gets any better by the end of it, but know that that's something I'm working on. I know for a fact that I was definitely moving around a lot more, and using my legs and footwork a lot more and committing to my moves better. I was really proud of myself for going pretty full out for most of these dances, especially the one where I did some whacking. Actually, I'm generally quite impressed with myself for finishing entire songs throughout this challenge. Usually, in the past, when I freestyle, I tend to just cut off the song before it's done, either because I get bored or honestly run out of ideas for the second chorus or something onwards. I feel like West Coast Swing has gotten me more used to dancing to entire songs the whole way through. There are quite a few more things that actually transfer well from partner dancing, and as I've been working on improving my West Coast Swing, I find that a lot of those elements have also improved my dancing in general. Some things like weight transfers, grounding, and intentionality translate really well between both styles. And I find that things I'm still working on improving are also applicable to both, like patience and committing to my movements and really finishing things out to get clearer lines and shapes and complete the picture of each moment.
Looking you over, you don't know my name yet.
Again, we are in the same location for day 4, but at a slightly different angle because I forgot to charge my camera, so I had to keep it plugged in to the wall while I filmed this. I think I kept to the same groovy R&B playlist for most of this day. I believe I got started a little later than I had intended because of staying up late the night before. So I tried to keep it pretty chill and really focus on just finishing my moves through the end of the beat and maintaining continuity between movements. I was also thinking about a lot of the different lesson topics from the full day of workshops that I had attended the day before. And so there was a lot of rolling of the feet, pressing in, transferring my weight fully back and forth, and different elements like that was going on in my brain while I was dancing. On this day, I also wanted to introduce some extra elements, like adding some floor work to one of the songs and also doing an invisible ball freestyle drill towards the very end. So, someone actually walked in on me towards the end of my session during that last dance to use the gym. Well, it wasn't just anyone, it was a pro champion dancer who was on staff for the weekend, and I definitely panicked a little bit, but I kept dancing. And honestly, I was quite surprised that I managed to keep dancing and finish that song. But, like, we were there for a dance event. People can't think I'm too weird for dancing, right? On to day 5. We're back at home, and the post event exhaustion honestly had me considering skipping this day entirely and just adding a couple of extra days at the end of the week. But I did not do that and persisted with a few adjustments. My legs were very tired from the entire weekend of dancing, so I decided to tone it down a bit and try this concept of focusing on hand and upper body movements. So to match that energy, a lot of the songs I used this day were more ballady, slow pop, and R&B. A lot of this was very dramatic. I, for one, am guilty as a dancer of not giving face. So, with this setup, I had a few more moments of showing emotions and acting a little bit, but it's not a lot. And hey, we're just trying our best here. The goal today was honestly to just get creative with my movements and the shapes and articulation. I'm not a tutter by any means and don't have the control to make clean, snappy lines with my fingers on the fly, but getting to explore with much smaller and more subtle movements was very fun. I did feel myself run out of ideas of things that I could do with my arms and my hands and my head in this setup. So I did try to involve some chest and shoulder movements where I could, and the spinny chair was definitely coming in play. I would also be lying if I said my feet weren't moving under the table. But honestly, I'm just glad I didn't skip this day, despite being really, really tempted to. So I wanted to avoid going back to the day 1 and 2 setup in my room and had planned to do at least one day of freestyling outdoors. So this is that day. I really enjoy freestyling outside, especially when it's really cold out because I get really warm when I dance. There's also usually less people out and about in the winter, so I feel like I can get away with it more. I started out with a little bench moment to give myself some prop work practice and to warm up before going for a more traditional camera angle. I find that I really like playing around with these interesting angles and elements when it comes to dance, and these are definitely things I will be exploring with choreography and maybe even video concepts in the future. I kept with the smooth R&B music to start and then later on transitioned to some hip hop to match the grittier experience of dancing on concrete in sneakers. And then threw on some disco music as well to work on a little bit of whacking again. So, fun fact, during one of these songs, a couple of helicopters passed by overhead, and only after reviewing the footage did I realize that in that same moment, the lyrics of the song say copter, copter. So, that was an interesting coincidence. And you may be noticing that the layers are slowly coming off one at a time as these clips progress. And that's just me getting more and more acclimated to the temperature and getting warm while dancing. After just coming from my indoor seated freestyle setup from the day before, I honestly just needed to get moving again. Apart from that, another goal I had for this day was honestly a little bit of exposure therapy. When I had done outdoor freestyles in the past, they were at pretty isolated walking trails with barely any people. This time around, I'm at a local park that was busy ish for an afternoon on the weekdays. There were kids on a playground nearby and people walking their dogs, and the entry point to a really popular trail was just behind me. But nobody bothered me and or stared for too long aside from a few little kids. So it was fine. It was all fine. For the last day of this challenge, I decided to book some time at a local studio to give myself another environment to dance in. I came in with the intention of going for more flowier styles of movement because I knew I would have good conditions to work with in terms of floor type, space, mirrors, and privacy. Although I will admit I was a bit lazy with my music selection this day. I couldn't really pin down what I felt like dancing to and found myself skipping through a lot of stuff. It honestly was a bit frustrating, and I think I was feeling a little uninspired, which could have been fatigue from doing this every day leading up to this point, or just physical exhaustion. But yeah, it wasn't as exciting for the last day as I probably would have wanted it to be. But again, I'm just glad I showed up. I'm glad I kept doing it, even though I kind of had a later start than I intended to for this day as well. In terms of genres and styles, I covered the basics with some hip hop music, a little bit of disco, and then tried to seek out some slower, smoother music at the end to try and integrate bigger, slower, almost contemporary like movements. It's definitely not a style that I'm particularly good at, but it was nice to try. I clearly don't have any floor tricks or the athletic ability to do anything crazy with my body like most contemporary dancers probably do, but it was nice to kind of just let go and move around and not worry about rolling around on the floor, crawling all over, and stuff like that. Honestly, I probably could have done more of that, or maybe would have wanted to do more, but again, the motivation and the energy and the music just wasn't where I wanted it to be. And yeah, I think at this point I was already thinking about putting this into the video and I was worried about copyright music and all that kind of stuff. So then that got me in my head, and I just knew it would be difficult to try and find copyright free contemporary music. So, oh well, this is what that is. That's probably just something I'll have to try again some other time soon. I don't really know if there's any specific improvements or points of comparison to make over the course of the 7 days, but I know I definitely loosened up in comparison to day one. I gained more confidence in some ways, and I think I was much more intentional about my movements. Did it have more to do with the actual environment that I was dancing in? Maybe, but there's definitely some growth that happened there. I'd say knowing that I was expecting to dance a little bit every single day put me in a different mindset. And although my peak performance pretty much was towards the middle of the week and it kind of went back down from there, I still think I was better for it after all is said and done. In conclusion, I'm really glad I did this challenge. I think it really helped me come to terms with the fact that I really have always been and always will be a dancer, despite no longer being part of a dance crew or not doing performances as regularly or not even doing it professionally. That no amount of time or distance from it can take that away from me. Another thing that I'm really excited about from this is the potential for future projects and future concepts that I'm really looking forward to. Hopefully working on learning some choreography, working on my own choreography, and even possibly producing dance video concepts. But that's for the future, and that's just something to look forward to, and I can't wait to work on those things and share all of that with you. But with that, I think it's safe to say that this challenge was a success, and while I probably can't maintain this level of frequency of freestyling on a regular basis, I think I am going to revisit it more often. I think moving forward, I'm going to integrate practicing at least some amount of time of freestyling into my weekly schedule and really keep working on that muscle, because there's clearly plenty of room for improvement. And I would love to expand the dance styles that I actually use in freestyling, like really honing in on my whacking skills, maybe revisiting other hip hop styles that I don't think I'm as good at and have neglected, and even to explore newer styles that may not be what I'm most comfortable with. I think there's just a lot of room for growth that this challenge helped me realize, but also a lot of reassurance that came with it, knowing that I am still capable of dancing. And quite frankly, I think I've improved in comparison to when I was actively dancing still. Like, my freestyling skills, I think, have gotten better. Thank you, West Coast Swing. So that's really exciting. And hopefully there's more to come with my dance journey. But until then, I'll see you guys next week.